Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a place where the air is so clear it feels like drinking cool water. High in the mountains, where the peaks touch the clouds, there is a silence that existed long before the first word was spoken and will remain long after the last echo fades. It is not an empty silence, but a full one, alive, vibrant, and holding the entire world within its embrace. In this high place, time does not rush. It flows like a slow, ancient river, unhurried and sure of its destination. Here, the sun does not merely shine, it touches everything with a golden, compassionate warmth. It is in this atmosphere of profound stillness that we find ourselves in the courtyard of an old monastery, surrounded by stone walls that have absorbed centuries of prayers and the whispers of the wind. Today, we explore the art of finding stillness not by escaping the noise, but by understanding the nature of sound itself. We look for the secret door to inner peace, which often stands wide open, though we are too busy running to notice it. It is a lesson on the silence between the strokes of the bell, a teaching on how to find the eternal pause in the midst of the fleeting world. In the centre of the courtyard stood a great brass bell, heavy and dark, hanging from a wooden beam weathered by snow and sun. Beside it sat an old monk, his face mapped with the wrinkles of 1,000 smiles, his eyes deep pools of tranquility. A young man, a visitor from the city, sat across from him. The visitor's shoulders were tight, his brow furrowed, carrying the invisible weight of endless responsibilities, the noise of traffic, the demands of the future, and the regrets of the past. "Master," the young man said, his voice trembling with a desperate urgency, "I seek peace, but my life is a storm. The world is loud, demanding and chaotic. I come here and I feel calm. But the moment I return to the marketplace, the moment I step back into the hustle, the peace evaporates like mist in the morning sun. How can I keep this stillness? How can I find silence when the world never stops screaming?" The old monk nodded slowly, acknowledging the young man's suffering with a gentle compassion. He did not speak immediately. In the tradition of the sages, he allowed the question to hang in the air, letting it settle like dust in a sunbeam. "You look for peace as if it were an object to be found," the monk finally whispered, his voice sounding like dry leaves shifting on a stone path. "You believe that peace is the absence of noise. You believe that to be calm, the world must shut its mouth. But this is an illusion. The river does not ask the rocks to move so it may flow smoothly. It flows around them. The mountain does not ask the wind to cease. It stands firm, and the wind breaks upon it." The monk stood up, his maroon robes rustling softly, and gestured toward the great bell. "Come," he said, "let us listen to the voice of the Dharma." He picked up a heavy wooden striker. "Close your eyes," the monk instructed. "Do not listen to the strike. Do not listen to the loud clamour. Listen to what comes after." With a swinging motion, the monk struck the bell. Boom! The sound was immense. It crashed through the courtyard, a physical wave of vibration that rattled the chest and filled the ears. It was a sound that demanded attention, sharp and overwhelming. "Listen," the monk whispered. The initial crash began to fade. The sharp metal tang softened into a hum. The hum grew quieter, stretching out, thinning into a long, resonant thread of sound. It hovered in the air, a ghost of the original strike. The young man listened. He followed the sound as it travelled away from the bell, drifting toward the mountains. "Keep listening," the monk guided softly. "Follow it to the end." The sound became faint, a mere vibration on the edge of hearing. And then it was gone. "Now," the monk said, his voice barely audible, "what do you hear?" "Nothing," the man said, "just silence." "Ah," the monk smiled, and his eyes crinkled at the corners. "You hear the silence. But tell me, was the silence there before I rang the bell?" The man paused. "Yes." "And is the silence there now that the sound has died?" "Yes." "And while the bell was ringing, thundering and shaking the air, was the silence there then?" The young man opened his eyes. A look of confusion crossed his face, followed by the slow dawn of realization. The silence. It was underneath the sound. It was holding the sound. The monk nodded, sitting back down on the cushion. "This is the nature of your mind and the nature of the world. The silence is the canvas, and the noise is the paint. We become so fascinated by the paint, the brightly coloured worries, the dark strokes of fear, the chaotic splashes of desire, that we forget the canvas. But the canvas never leaves. It is always there, holding everything, untouched by what is painted upon it." "The bell," the monk continued, looking at the brass instrument with gratitude, "is like a thought or an event in your life. It arises, it strikes, it is loud, it demands your attention. But if you watch closely, if you listen with the ear of the heart, you will see that every sound arises from silence, and every sound returns to silence. The silence is the mother of the sound." Imagine sitting by a riverbank. The water rushes by. This is the stream of your thoughts, the endless to-do lists, the conversations, the noise of the city. Most people jump into the river and are swept away by the current, gasping for air, fighting the rocks. But the wise one sits on the bank. They watch the water flow. They know that the water is wet, cold and fast, but they also know they are the solid earth beneath it. "You ask how to find peace in the hustle," the monk said, pouring tea into a small clay cup. The steam rose in a delicate spiral, dancing for a moment before vanishing. "You do not find it, you realize it. It is already here. It is the space between your thoughts. It is the pause at the bottom of your exhale before the next breath rushes in. It is the stillness between the beats of your heart." Consider the wisdom of the paradox. When you stop looking, you find. When you stop fighting the noise, the silence reveals itself. When you let go of the need for the world to be quiet, you find the quiet within yourself. Do not try to stop the bell from ringing, the master advised, handing the cup to the man. The world will always ring. There will be traffic, there will be arguments, there will be loss and gain. These are the strokes of the bell. But you must become the listener of the fade. Pay attention to the gap. Between two thoughts, there is a gap. Between two words, there is a gap. Between the inhalation and the exhalation, there is a gap. The young man took the tea. He looked at the reflection of the sky in the dark liquid. He took a breath, and for the first time in years, he didn't rush to let it out. He felt the pause, a tiny, infinite moment of suspension where nothing existed, and yet everything was perfect. This gap, the monk said, his voice blending with the gentle wind rustling the pine trees, is the window into the absolute. It is the Buddha nature. It is the Tao. It is the clear mirror that reflects the fire but does not burn. When you return to your city, do not fight the noise. Instead, listen for the background. When a car honks, hear the silence that wraps around the honk. When you feel anger rise, feel the vast space of awareness in which that anger burns like a small candle in a great hall. The hall is not afraid of the candle. The silence is not afraid of the noise. The sun began to dip behind the peaks, painting the snow in shades of violet and rose. The courtyard was dimming, returning to the shadows. Practice this, the monk concluded, closing his eyes as if settling into a deep meditation. Trust the silence. It is not empty. It is full of potential. It is the womb of all things. When you stop holding on to the sounds of the world, the silence stays. And in that silence, you are home. The young man sat there for a long time as the twilight deepened. He listened to the wind. He listened to his own breath. And somewhere, far off, a bird called out, a sharp, piercing sound. He heard the call, but more importantly, he heard the immense, velvet silence that received it. He realized that peace was not a destination to run toward, but the ground he was already standing on. Let these words settle in your heart like seeds in fertile soil. Breathe in deeply, feeling the life enter you. Breathe out slowly, letting go of the need to control. Rest in the space between. If this story resonated with you, if it brought a moment of stillness to your day, please support the channel. It helps us share our wisdom with others and keep the wheel of Dharma turning. May you find the silence between the strokes. May you be at peace.